Welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast, powered by Healthy Steps Nutrition. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we believe something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated, which is why we focus on a simple, habit-based approach. We know that helping you become the best and healthiest version of yourself isn't just about what you eat or going to the gym a few hours a week. We focus on a holistic framework addressing stress management, mindset, lifestyle, sleep, support system, and of course, exercise and nutrition. My name is Nicole Coyne, and I'm one of the dietitians and the founder of Healthy Steps Nutrition, CrossFit HSN, and HSN Mentoring. I'm also the author of the Healthy Kids Cookbook, 100% kid-approved recipes the entire family will love. You can find it on Amazon. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to take one step at a time to making health a way of life. Today's podcast guest is Amanda Haar. She is one of our lead dietitians at Healthy Steps Nutrition HQ. She also runs some of our specialty programs like our partnership that we have with Twisters Gymnastics and some of our hormone, health, and family nutrition coaching programs. Today's podcast, we are talking all about mindfulness. Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present and aware of where we are, what we are doing, and not feeling overwhelmed by what is going on around us. Whoa. I don't know about you, but being mindful in a day like today in this century is a little bit crazy. We have things going around all the time. We've got notifications coming to our watches, our phones. It is super tough to be mindful. But today we're going to talk about 4 tips to practice mindfulness and to master mindfulness. My hope is that you find one of these tips super helpful, it speaks to you, and that you can start implementing it on a daily basis to create a habit so that you can be fully present and you can actually enjoy everything that's going on instead of feeling worried about the next thing. We will get to this podcast right after this message. If you are a repeat listener to this podcast, I would love for you to do me a favor. Please take a second and leave us a review. It really helps this podcast reach more people. And as I mentioned before, our goal is to help 1 million people take control of their health one step at a time so they can prevent and reverse chronic disease. You can help us do that by leaving a review, and it only takes just a second. If you find this podcast helpful, feel free to screenshot it and don't forget to tag us on social media at Healthy Steps Nutrition so that someone else can be inspired by what we're talking about today. All right, let's get to this podcast with Amanda Haar. Amanda, welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Nicole.
Today we are talking about 4 tips to master mindfulness. I have to say this is kind of a buzzy, catchy title. We did that on purpose because we wanted everyone to listen to it. And we have to admit, we're not the masters. It's always a work in progress.
Exactly.
But 4 things to become the best work in progress to help you become better at mindfulness. That should really be the title.
Love it. Title it whatever you want to title it.
All right, let's take a deep dive. Why is mindfulness important?
Oh, huge. So mindfulness is important to be in the present moment. And when we're in the present moment, we are more satisfied. We have lower stress levels and we get more from our life.
Ultimately, feeling fulfilled. I think so many times when you overbook yourself or you don't have any margin. I keep saying margin. I feel like margin is going to be one of my words for 2023.
It should be, yes.
I've said it 100 times today. So, when you don't have that, you're constantly thinking about the next thing that you have to do, and you're not truly enjoying the experience that you have right now. So let's pretend we are doing this podcast, but then we've got another meeting. I might not be fully present in being able to give the best information forward to this podcast because I'm thinking about all the other meetings that I have versus if you slow down and you're truly present in the moment, you're going to be able to put your best work forward and show up as your best self.
Right. It ultimately makes us more productive, right? And we're thinking in, let's say, like a family sense. Mindfulness might look like when you are with your kids around the table, actually listening to them instead of all those other things whirling in your mind that you need to get done in the day. I know for me personally, this is something that I struggle with on a daily basis, just especially because my kids tend to be the age where like sometimes their stories don't really have, a start and an ending. No, it's definitely like a mental practice that we need to go back to on a daily basis. And like you mentioned, like a journey, and we keep progressing at it.
No, I think in a digital age where there's so much on our phone and it can be such a distraction, it really does inhibit people from being truly present in the moment and being mindful. And when you combine your phone with like a Apple Watch that's like constantly giving you notifications, it's a constant distraction, which is going to cause you the separation between truly being present in what you have right now and, where your mind is going.
Right. And you think about it, your phone and technology is constantly kind of like your taskmaster, right? Even if it's not reminders of to-dos popping up on your phone all the time, those texts that come in, those emails that come in and make an alert, it's just like chronically putting you back into that task mode, which is basically interruptions in your life.
Over busyness, like booking our schedules like crazy or saying yes to everything or over committing ourselves ultimately causes more stress, increased cortisol levels, which makes it harder for our bodies to achieve changes that we're looking to accomplish. So if your goal is weight loss or even muscle gain and you have high cortisol levels, it'll be really tough for you to achieve those goals because your body doesn't have time to rest, recover, your hormones don't have time to reset because you're constantly like doing all the things and your mind just doesn't have time to slow down. So today, 4 tips to help you master mindfulness. I think the first tip is just so important to think about, getting a baseline for everything in life. You took the certified intrinsic coaching course a while ago. I took it last year. Some of our staff is in it right now. And it's this whole idea of what are you wanting? Like really figuring it out for yourself. So that you can make decisions that are in line with what you're wanting, not just right now. Because so many times what we do is we say yes to now, which is ultimately not the yes. It's saying no to what we want later.
Right. When you have that connection to your values and your vision, it just makes those decisions a whole lot easier. And then you kind of recognize that a lot of times you're saying yes to the distractions and having to say no to the things that actually align with your vision. So once you have that front and center, I mean, we totally recommend write it down. With a lot of my clients, we've actually worked through that's vision board worksheet this year. So they can really kind of come back to that throughout the year. And I know for myself, it was super helpful at the end of the year to come back to what I had done at the beginning of the year and really seeing, is what I accomplished in line with what I am wanting? And how does that translate to what I'm wanting for myself forward from here?
It's so helpful to really have a clear picture of what you want so you could take steps to get there. And so many of us are so busy that we don't even create time to figure out what we are wanting. We overbook our schedules and we're not even truly fulfilled because we aren't mindful with what we're wanting.
Right. It's so easy to kind of follow along with the crowd sometimes with that, right? Like if everyone else's kids are doing those extracurricular activities, like, is that in line with what we're wanting? Or are we wanting to kind of follow the crowd? Or if our friends are, going out every 3 days a week and drinking and eating, like, is that in line with what our vision is for our best self as well? So it kind of helps to put that filter there.
And even maybe, taking a step back from people and taking a step closer to people who are more in line with what you're wanting for yourself. So you have good accountability around that.
Huge.
So what you are wanting, so important. We actually do have a template that we gave out for the free 5-day challenge that we hosted in January. If you click the link in the show notes, you can get access to that. Super helpful for you to gain some clarity around what you're wanting in different areas of your life. So many times people don't achieve their goals because they haven't put some metrics and they haven't really spent some time figuring out what they want in those areas. And until you figure that out, you're not really going to be able to achieve what you're wanting because you don't even know. Right. So that would be super helpful for you. Number 2, this word pops up.
Margin.
Margin. Okay. What do I mean by margin? I think sometimes what ends up happening in our society is that we book our schedules so crazy that by the time we are done, we're so drained and we're not able to show up as our best selves. Or what ends up happening is we book our schedules so crazy is the stuff that didn't get done earlier in the day ends up bleeding over into quality time that we could be spending with our family. And I think that is something that I personally struggle with a lot is because did not and I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress with the margin so that I can get this stuff done. So at the end of the day, I can really be done. I find myself personally, like the kids will come in here and I'm in my home office. They'll say, "Hey, Nicole," and they're trying to tell me a story or something. And I'm like, "Hey, hold on. I can't listen to you and finish what I'm doing. Like I want to fully be engaged and focus on what you're saying. Let me finish this one thing. And then we'll get right back to what you're doing." But what ends up happening if you don't do that, your kids are telling you the story or trying to do something and you're completely somewhere else. And it's not a good experience for them. And it's not a good experience for you.
Right. That's a huge one. Yep. And I think this is something that bleeds into family life, work life, friendship life. That margin is as hard to do, right? Like I have to say, I struggle with that too, right? I always think like, okay, this is enough time to get everything done, but how often is that enough time to get everything done? So.
I underestimate how long it's going to take all the time. Like this is going to take 15 minutes and 45 minutes later, I am still working on it. And now I've bled over into the thing that I was supposed to work on next. I think this is so important, especially with like a spouse relationship, especially if you are working with your spouse. So Jason and I, my husband and I, we work together and it is so easy for work stuff to bleed into home life. And this is a work in progress for us, but we need margin to be able to take care of ourselves and our relationship. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have that, then like we're not going to have the business either, So it's really important for you to spend that time. And Jay knows, like, if I'm on the computer, if I'm doing something and he wants something like, "Hey, I have to talk to you. Let me know when you're done with whatever you're working on so that we can talk about whatever that thing is," so that he's not telling me a story, then getting frustrated. I'm not listening to him, but I'm already engaged in something else.
Right. That's huge. So first of all, the how is just actually being clear, right? About what we are and what our schedule looks like to those around us. How else would you say creating margin is feasible?
Yeah, I think the schedule piece is a big thing, and also spending time. We're huge proponents of finding a therapist or someone to talk to, right, on a regular basis for yourself, for self-care. And what was interesting, I actually had a wit with mine yesterday, and she was like, "Nicole, your schedule is crazy right now. How are you taking care of yourself? What are you actually doing? How's your eating? How's your sleeping? How's your exercise? Like, what's going on?" And I think it's so important sometimes, even as coaches, like we can let our self-care get pushed to the back burner because we're so busy. So I think we always say, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you need to make sure that you're prioritizing your self-care and scheduling that in so that you have the margin still, but then you're also showing up as your best self. What would you say about creating margin for yourself?
Yeah. And I think, probably that game of, first of all, kind of reviewing how things have actually been going for you, right? Because it's a learning curve of like, okay, no, this is like, for me, I do weekly client check-ins every Thursday morning. And essentially I would like it to take about like 30 to 45 minutes, but I know now it takes over an hour for me to get that done. So I need to make sure that I am scheduling time between my first client and kid drop off, or have my husband take them to school so that I can do that. So I'm not doing that at the end of the day when my kids are around, my husband's around. So really kind of that just like learning process and adjusting from there, I think is a great kind of approach to review and then take those action steps forward.
And I think, when you review things, it's also helpful to see, all right, what's working well. There's a book called The Gap and the Gain, and it talks about finding fulfillment and happiness. And so many times we look at how far we have to go or what's not working, and we can't focus on the things that are working right now and double down on those things. And it's a super interesting concept because if you can find fulfillment and happiness, and let's not find it because it is within you. You just need to, well, I guess you do need to find it, right? But if you can figure out what is working, double down on those things, and then adjust the things that are not working, you essentially are going to be more mindful and more fulfilled.
Definitely. Right. And then kind of speaking of that, number 3 is how to be mindful when you're eating. I love that. Let's talk more about that.
Mindful eating, such a buzz. word.
Yes.
Mindfulness, mindful eating. Like the things that I see around mindful eating on social media is like, I'm having a Twix and I'm mindfully eating it. Like, it's not an excuse to not eat quality food, but it's also listening to your body and slowing down and truly enjoying the food that you have, the flavors that you have. Because we're such in a rush, we chow down food so quickly, we're not even enjoying it. And then we're still not satisfied at the end of that meal because we've rushed so much in the eating process.
Right. Rushing distractions are both kind of like anti-mindfulness things when we're eating. So first of all, if you're not eating your meals at a table without a screen in front of you, that is the absolute first step to start with for mindful eating. And then this is something that I actually use with a lot of kids that I work with. And it's very applicable for adults too, because we still have five senses, is just using all five of your senses when you're eating. So if you haven't never done this before, it might seem new or crazy to you, but utilizing, looking at your food, noticing what it looks like to you, using your nose to smell it, what the aromas are, those are connected with your taste buds to obviously taste it. And also like the tactile, right? Like the feel of it, if it's finger food, or like how it feels when you're chewing it. There's like the raisin experiment, they call it, where you can actually like be walked through this process. But essentially, if we're eating mindfully, this is something that we are noticing and thinking about while we're eating our meals, hopefully most of them with other people whom we love, right? That's another component to that. But that really helps us to tune in and get more satisfaction from the foods that we're eating, and ultimately helps us be healthier.
I want to talk about slowing down a little bit, because a lot of times we're scarfing down meals and our body doesn't have the proper time to digest that food, and also causes digestive issues if we're not chewing properly, so that the breakdown of the food can actually start happening when it's in your mouth.
Right. And you think about this, like the stress state, right? Like if we are stressed while we're eating our food, trying to get something done really quickly, when our body is in that cortisol or stress state, that is basically anti-nutritive, right? Like our body is like setting itself up to run away from something versus resting and digesting. So we really want to think about how our psyche and our emotions are during that time.
I think just tuning in, when I started working with a therapist, it was always about like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Like, I don't know how I'm feeling, but it really is a great thing to just sit and ask yourself. And then you can start realizing the point. A lot of us don't even realize how stressed we are.
Right.
We have no idea because we haven't tuned into how we're feeling to even know that we need to do something to help us get into a better rhythm, better cadence.
That's so true. And it's hard as a coach because sometimes you can see that in others or even in your relationships, right? Like you can see that you're always stressed, but once you as a person realize that and are aware of it, you can do something about it. And that's actually an action step that a couple of clients are doing right now. Like they've fostered that themselves, is I need to learn to sit with my emotions before I move forward to my next step, because ultimately that tended to lead them into emotional eating or overeating. So just learning to feel that feeling and not judge it is a beautiful point for mindfulness.
I love it. So mindful eating, but the other aspect, and you kind of mentioned this, like, hey, in a moment where you're stressed or where something happens, this is something that I truly think about all the time. Like, am I reacting to a situation or am I responding to the situation? And life isn't about what happens to us. It's about how we respond to those things, right? So if we're able to be mindful and slow down, and not always, from the intrinsic coaching course, like let your first thoughts be your first thoughts. They're not probably the best thoughts in most cases. Like we have 80,000 thoughts a day, 80% of them are negative. So can we slow down and really think about what is the best way to respond? And, I remember our pastor at our church talking about just relationships in general. It was a couple of years ago. And he was like, always give people the benefit of the doubt.
I love that.
And if you think about that, it's super interesting, right? Because a lot of times, especially if something's happened before, especially with one person, you might go down a rabbit hole, like that, you go down this path of our brain is hardwired to think of things that have already happened, right? So instead of doing that, can you take a pause, give someone the benefit of the doubt and respond instead of react? And what's going to happen there is you're going to start building trust with that person. It's going to be a better relationship with them. And ultimately, if you're in a work environment, it's going to be more productive for everybody.
That's huge. It's like innocent until proven guilty, right?
Okay. So mindfulness while you're eating, use the five senses. I love that. Slow down. 2 simple tips there, like get away from a screen and sit down and enjoy your meal. Put your fork down, drink a sip of water, like truly enjoy the flavors of the food that you're consuming. And it'll be a more enjoyable experience, but more importantly, you're going to feel more satisfied at the end. Because number one, your brain has had time to catch up with your belly to say, hey, I'm full. You can stop now. I don't know if you guys were like us, but I was part of the clean plate club. Like we had to clean our plate at the end of the, for dinner. If we didn't, then we weren't having anything else, which, okay, fine. But it kind of forced overeating versus like being done when you're done. Like you don't need to clean your plate. If you save it, don't waste it, but save it and then have it for another meal later.
Right. And that essentially becomes very important at restaurants, right? Where they tend to overserve you on a lot of big platters of food.
Absolutely. All right. So the last tip for mindfulness, which I think is so helpful, and there's so many different resources around there, is around this idea, practicing an attitude of gratitude. When you get a new car, let's say you get a Jeep, like all the things that now all of a sudden there's so many Jeeps on the driveway, right? Or like on the road. There's so many Jeeps that are everywhere because you are seeing Jeeps because you have a Jeep. Now you care about it, you're paying attention to it. And the same thing happens with our attitude. If we are constantly thinking about negative, all we're going to do is think about negative. I don't know about you, but I don't know of any negative people that I like enjoy hanging out with.
Right.
Like, and you don't want to be that person to anyone else.
Yes.
So like, what can you do? Like find things to be thankful for. Go to bed at night or at the end of your workday. If you struggle with like winding down, at the end of your workday, write down a couple of things that you are thankful for. At the end of the day, one of the things we do at the dinner table every single night is, hey, what's one thing that you're thankful for? What's one thing that you're looking forward to tomorrow? Practicing an attitude of gratitude is so great to start at such a young age. So if you have kids, like start that now as a family and do it together. It's such a great experience because whatever you think about, you're focusing on, your life goes in the direction of your strongest thoughts. That's a Craig Rochelle quote, but your life goes in the direction of your strongest thoughts. So if you're constantly thinking about positive things, you're going to see more positive. Things are going to be moving in a better direction. Life isn't what happens to you. It's how you respond to it. So if you're constantly having this attitude of gratitude, you could find opportunity in obstacles, and your attitude is so much better. And then people want to gravitate towards you. People want to hang out with you. They want you to support them because you're that positive light for people.
I love that. And then you think about how that bleeds into all of your goals, right? Your professional, social, physical, spiritual, right? Like it all impacts everything in your life when you have that attitude of gratitude. And bringing it to specifically nutrition. One of our clients had a really awesome thought where she realized she needed to be grateful for the food that she had in the day. So she kind of noticed that at the end of the workday, she was very overstressed, overworked, tired. And all she would think about is, what am I going to have for dinner? And she just wanted to be full, like just have a full feeling. And she realized, you know what? I need to actually reflect on the lunch that I had, the balanced lunch that I had, and be grateful for that and think about how that felt for me. So she could switch from just kind of that wanting more and more and more, which is so common in our society these days, and just flip it back to the gratefulness. So that was really cool to see that mindset shift in awareness, even in the nutrition sense.
I think a lot of times, especially when it comes down to achieving weight loss goals, it's tough to have an attitude with gratitude if you don't see whatever you've defined as success happen regularly. Like progress is not a straight line, right? So if your vision of success is reaching a number on a scale and it doesn't happen as quickly as you want it, your attitude of gratitude is going to be tougher. But when it doesn't happen, what are you doing? Are you looking at non-scale victories? Are you looking at how you're feeling, how you're sleeping, how consistent you've been with some habits that will set you up for success for a lifetime? Are you looking at your quality of sleep, your relationships, overall health? Like, what are you looking at? And sometimes we have to like pull out the gratitude. We have to truly like think about it for a minute. Like, what are we thankful for? And if you go to bed, even at night, you do it at the dinner table with your family, you go to bed thinking about those things, you wake up in such a better place the next morning.
That's beautiful. And that makes me think of that. We have a small just sheet of productivity planner, right? The HSM productivity planner, which is a great tool. And you can do this in any way, shape, or form of kind of journaling. Just, what are you grateful for each day? And maybe reflecting, how was my nutrition, exercise, stress management today? And taking that and moving it into, connecting it with your big three, and then really using that to kind of continue that forward progress.
So big three, if you guys haven't listened to any of the podcasts where we talk about that, one of the things I learned from Michael Hyatt, one of my mentors, is, hey, there's only so much that you can actually truly put your attention on and focus on and make a huge stride, make a huge difference in every single year. And instead of having 50,000 goals or a bunch of different goals that are like going to take a lot of work and effort, narrow it down to like 3 themes that everything, like the decisions you make have to be in line with these themes, right? So what are they personally? What are they professionally for your business or your team? Or, it could break down into departments if you have different departments in your business. But this is such a valuable skill to have so that you can move the needle forward with your business. I'll give you guys the personal 3 that I set for myself this year. The first one was use the platform that we have to impact more people and help people transform their health and their life, prevent chronic disease through a simple habit-based approach. And what does that mean? Like, doing the free challenge that we did in January, where we had thousands of people listening to different educational trainings every single day. Doing these podcasts again. We got away from this podcast for 6 months because I had so much other things going on and it wasn't a priority for me, right? But no, if I look at what do I personally want to do and what's in line with what we want to do at Healthy Steps Nutrition, like I want to get the message out that you can change, that you can make a difference. So that's the first one. The second one is the quality time and spending more quality time with my family and having boundaries, creating margin so that I can truly be present and focus with Jason, my husband, and our kids, and finding something that they love playing golf. They love it. We have a simulator in our garage, and they are playing golf all the time. And I don't play golf, but one of the goals is to maybe start playing a little bit of golf this year so I can be involved in that and like be a part of the family activity that they love so much. So family quality time. And the third one is really trying to be a light with my faith and helping like transfer that down to the things that we do. So I personally try to bring it into at least one conversation every single day in some way, shape, or form, which I feel like you've really helped a lot with that because I've seen you naturally do it in like podcast episodes and just wait. And I was like, man, you inspired me that I was like, I'm going to make an intentional effort to do that every single day. Today's right now. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So, if you're thinking about, and I don't know if you've done this yet for yourself, but I think it's such a valuable thing to think about because it gives you clarity on saying yes to things that are in line with what you want for yourself and no to things that are not in line with what you're wanting for yourself personally and professionally.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I think that I hope you guys have all taken something and writing it down of something you can do in order to create margin, be more mindful, and just really create that space for connecting with your values in your life. Because for me, if I don't write something down, it's gone, right? Like if you're a podcaster, you've probably heard a billion different ideas, right? And they all kind of fly through your head, but we really want you to write something down as a takeaway from today.
Absolutely. And then when you think about, okay, how do I not forget it? Go back and revisit that, go back and look at it. When we do our staff meetings and even me personally reviewing my goals every single month, like it is at the top of my goal sheet. It's a reminder every single month when I look at it, what's the filter that I'm using this year? What do I want to accomplish? And it's a constant reminder. People don't achieve their goals because they forget about them. They don't write them down. So when you write down your goals, when you're writing down what you're wanting for yourself, go back and revisit that every single day. It'll make it so clear for you to say yes to the right things and no to the things that are not in line with what you're wanting for yourself.
Masters of mindfulness, right?
Work in progress.
That's right.
I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode with Amanda, all on 4 tips to master mindfulness. Now, I want to spend a second talking about the last one, practicing an attitude of gratitude. Our lives are going in the direction of our strongest thoughts. And the truth is, we have on average 80,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative. It's easier for us to focus on the negative. We have to be so intentional with practicing this attitude of gratitude. One of the things that we started doing as a family is going around the dinner table every single night and saying something that we're grateful for, something that we're looking forward to. If you have kids and teens and it's tough sometimes to connect, I challenge you to do this with them during the dinner table. It opens up an awesome conversation just for you to get an insight on the cool things that are going on in your kids' lives. And sometimes it can be a little bit tough to really dig deep. So it is probably one of my favorite things that we do every single night as a family. If you find it tough to sit down and have a family dinner together, maybe just try to do it 1 or 2 nights a week and build from there. You could also go on a walk after meals and have the same activity where you're going around and practicing an attitude of gratitude and focusing on positivity. One of the things that I've done in the past and I continue to do is write down the things that I'm super, super thankful for and revisiting that list. Sometimes it's so easy to forget all the awesome things that have happened, especially as you're setting new goals going into a new month. I would challenge you to do this because it really is going to help you be able to be mindful, be fully present so that ultimately you feel fulfilled in your life. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review so that this podcast can reach more people, and we'll see you back here next week.